Hey, and welcome to Faith Talk, Conversations That Matter. I am Pastor Ariel Otterstedt, and I am joined today by Matt Kindsvatter, who is the Executive Director of Luther Hill Ministries, which is our Synod's camping ministry, among all of the other things that they do as well, which we're going to talk about and you're going to hear about in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell us a little bit about Luther Hill and the history and what it is and how it evolved and where it came from and all the things.
Great. Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation to join. Luther Hill was founded in 1954. Was purchased. It's an old Phillips petroleum pump station, and a local pastor by the name of F.E. Eilers heard about it for being sale and thought it'd be a good investment for the church to have a camp in the LaGrange area. So he went along with the synod at the time, and they purchased the land for $1 more than the highest bid. It was a closed bid process, but Phillips was really excited about the possibility of the land. Okay. So it got leaked, and he paid $1 more, but he also went about $3,000 over what he was allowed to by the synod.
Okay.
So he asked for forgiveness rather than permission.
Okay.
And from there, and then that $3,000, that balance was made up by the women's organization at the time. So Pastor Eilers, along with the members of Swiss Alp and Blackjack in the Fayette County area, went in and started to clean up and got everything ready to go. And so since that summer of 1954, campers and retreat guests have been coming out to LaGrange and out to Luther Hill to experience God's creation and to be present out there. And then in I think 2015, I'm trying to remember correctly, we added a second facility to and that's the Zion Retreat Center located on Galveston Island. Zion Lutheran Church at the time, the oldest, it was the Swedish Lutheran Church, so it goes back, its dates in Galveston go back to 1892, its roots there. And then after Hurricane Ike, they had damage, and they tried to continue as a worshiping community, but it just wasn't happening.
Right.
So they in turn donated their land, the facility, to the synod. The synod ended up giving it to us with the intention of turning it into a retreat center. So for the last 6 years, Zion Retreat Center has welcomed folks to Galveston Island. So
what kind of folks come to the retreat center? I mean, I know a little bit about camp, and we're going to talk more about it in a minute, but retreat center, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so for that, Zion it has 8 bedrooms with private baths, and then we have a kitchen and a meeting space. So a lot of the groups that use us will be adult, like we just had the Latinx synod was just down there for the weekend working, and then we'll have groups through the summer. They'll come for a week-long high school, and then they work with other local organizations to volunteer and then play at the beach and all that. So it's anything from youth all the way up to adult. It's a little bit nicer than what we have out at Luther Hill right now, but we're working on that. We can talk about that later.
We will.
So that kind of makes up our 2 locations. So Luther in LaGrange, we sit on about 155 acres, and in Galveston, we sit on 0.5 acres.
Right.
It's really interesting. Folks, our main site, Luther Hill, tends to be people come and they spend all of their time there because we have all the activities and things.
Right.
Zion is more for you to come and meet and then go out and explore Galveston. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about main campus in LaGrange. What kinds of activities, events, things go on there? Summer is coming, y'all. We are bringing a group of kids week 1 because we always go week 1. I think last count I heard from Mark, there's like 30-something of our kids who are going, so we're probably taking over a lot week 1, which we do. So what sorts of opportunities are out there for the kids this summer? What's, availability looking like, things like that?
Yeah, we're looking forward to having y'all out week 1. At Luther Hill, we have all of the typical camp activities that you would expect. Arts and crafts, archery, basketball, all that. We have our ropes course. We have the pond, a pool. On the pond, we have inflatable trampoline and inflatable, all the fun stuff for kids to go out and do everything. And then during the day, the campers with their cabin get to participate in Bible studies, worships, and other fun stuff that we have going on around. So yeah, all your normal camp activities mixed into one, and it's for ages. We take for overnight camp, completed first grade all the way through high school. In our high school opportunities, in our junior high and high school opportunities, we have some that are based there but go out and do different things, different adventure. Texas adventure, go out to Enchanted Rock and do hiking and sleep under the stars and all that fun stuff.
Cool. So is there still opportunities for people to register kids for this summer if they want to go?
Absolutely. Okay, we have space and all. We're starting to fill up in some weeks, but mainly we still have space available for all of our programs. I take that back. And our Lyle 2 program is filled up.
Really?
So
full summer.
Yep, full summer. So
well, I'm glad I registered my Lyle 2 early, because he would be mad at me if he didn't get to go. So yay, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. I mean, that's a lot of Lyles.
That is. So the Lyle program,
right? I was just going to say,
if you don't know, that is our high school leadership program. It stands for Lutheran Youth Leadership Experience. And what that program, it's a 2-week program, and it is built around learning about leadership, and not just leadership at camp, but leadership skills to be able to take back to your community.
Right.
So they get a chance to for that first week of it, they work together in community to learn different skills and things like that. And then in the second week, they get an opportunity to shadow our counselors or shadow other staff to learn about how to see those skills in action. Kind of a wonderful lab for them to practice and learn. So that program allows. So when we say Lyle 2, it's a 2-year program. Right. So once you've completed 9th grade, you do Lyle 1. And then Lyle 2, they actually spend a little bit more time shadowing than they do with Lyle 1. So by shadowing, I mean following around a counselor, helping with Bible studies, helping keep those kids moving and all that fun stuff.
Right.
So,
interacting with the younger campers.
Exactly.
Because they're still technically campers themselves.
Exactly.
So leadership development is a big part of what you guys do, in addition to camping type ministries. And so we've talked about sort of for those high school students, that Lyle opportunity to kind of, it's almost like counselor in training, but with the aspect of taking it home to your congregations as well. Mm-hmm. So what other ways do you form leaders at Luther Hill? Yeah,
so we're getting ready. Starting next Tuesday, we'll start to welcome in our summer staff. So this summer, we have about, I think it's right around 55 young adults that will be serving on our summer staff. So they go through 2 weeks of staff. Some of them go through 3 weeks. Some of them go through 2 weeks of staff training. So that allows them to be out there and serve and live into their faith, being counselors, being helping on day camp counselors, being lifeguards, work in the kitchen, being a camp hand, which kind of is the behind the scenes to make sure that everything's set up. So what it's allowed, I mentioned it earlier about it being a lab, but what a leadership lab, camp gives these young adults the opportunity to live into their faith, to share that faith with others by using their skills and learning more about the gifts that God has given them to make an impact in this world. And so that allows that. And then a part of that staff as well is we have those high school students that are entering into their senior year. They can join their staff members. They are our program staff, which they come and serve for 4 weeks. And that allows them, they do 1 week of staff training with our full staff. And then they serve for 4 weeks either in June or July. And they get an opportunity to be a co-counselor. They go on day camp. They're a day camp counselor. They have an opportunity to be on our activity staff, and they get to see all the different aspects of camp. So it's kind of like that. You go to the Lyle program. You kind of learn more about what camp like. You learn about the camp behind the scenes. It's fun to watch their eyes be open to like, well, I thought that just happened. Oh, no. This is
somebody sets up all those chairs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then also, you intentionally have. Oh, that's part of faith formation. That's why we sit down at the end of every day to review and to have a devotion and things. So it's really fun for them to start to learn the parts of camp. And then so that eventually they can, if they want to come serve at Luther Hill or wherever they serve, they can learn about a little bit more what makes camp go.
And if they do decide that they want to be full-time summer staff after they graduate high school, they know which channel they're going to be most interested in.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like some folks, they are built to be a camp counselor. They are built to go out and round up those 12 campers and play games and go all day and then teach Bible studies. Some have the gifts of just hard work. Like they just want to do mow the lawn. They want to
Right.
mow the grass. They want to
Right.
build campfires. They want to make sure that all the stuff is set up for faith life and fun to happen at
Right.
camp. So yeah.
And some want to do the fun stuff, but not all day, every day. So they like do arts and crafts or are a lifeguard or something like that. So they can kind of dabble in both.
We even have summer staff office admin help that
nice.
come in and
Okay.
because to keep up with all the organization of
Right.
all the health forms and making sure all that, we even have that's a summer staff position. So we want to. It's not just when you think of it, you think of the camp counselors
Right.
and which make the program go,
Right.
but it's all the other things that make camp go.
Well, I know
So-
when my husband worked at camp a billion jillion years ago. Okay, he'll be mad at me for saying that. Some time ago. He was arts and crafts coordinator, but he also worked in the kitchen. Like those were his two things that he really enjoyed doing. So he had some time with the kids, but like scrubbing pots and pans was his jam.
Yeah.
For some kids, that's their jam, and
yeah,
that's
exactly.
keeps the camp moving.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to eat.
It takes a village.
It does take a village to make camp happen.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about COVID, because we would be remiss to talk about all the things happening in ministry if we didn't talk about COVID and how that has impacted your ministry and how you guys have sort of gotten through it, overcome obstacles, stresses, etc. What's that been like?
Yeah, it was never in my wildest dreams did I think I would wake up in the morning to visit the CDC website or the Small Business Administration website. Never thought. But the beauty of that, what for the first time ever, we did not have in-person summer camp. That's the most striking public thing that happened during COVID for us. And we had to be able to be adaptive in that. But the word that comes out of COVID for camp was creativity and stories.
Yeah.
And what I want to start with stories. What we were able to learn during COVID, our donors stepped up, our congregations stepped up and allowed Luther Hill to continue its ministry. It looked different.
Right.
And we're still learning from that. But I learned more stories about Luther Hill and its impact during COVID of folks sending in a gift, or saying, "Hey, we're praying for it. Hey, can we come out and volunteer?"
Yeah.
And then I'd hear these stories like, "I remember coming to camp when I was in the 70s," and like, "Oh, I didn't know that." But the donors and these stories carried us through that, and it really allowed us to set up, along with the help from the PPP loans and all the stuff that the government provided. We came out in a really strong financial position. We were able to continue the ministry in new creative ways, and I'll get to creative here in a little bit. But really, overall, Luther Hill came out in a good place.
Yeah.
In creative, what we saw, the toughest thing that we had to do is we had hired a full staff, and we were getting ready for summer 2020. We put together as COVID continue, we put together an advisory panel.
Yeah.
And the advisory panel was made up of doctors and pastors and camper parents and everything. And they along with the board of directors made the tough decision, along with the staff, to cancel. And in the midst of that, we thought maybe we could still have camp in July because you're still learning all of that. But we were able to keep hired about 15 summer staff. And then their first week of staff training, we had to make the decision to pivot that we weren't going to have in-person camp.
Yeah.
And those people, those summer staff, along with our program staff and our year-round staff, were just creative in continuing to still allow somewhat of a camp experience, just like living. And all the congregation. Yeah. Okay, we're going virtual, yay! And figuring out what that means and what that looks like. How can you do like this relational togetherness thing this virtually? And so what we were able to do was offer 1 week of virtual camp. And then 1 week of virtual Lyle camp as well. And then those staff members each picked a passion project out of camp. Now we had all this time since we didn't have people on site, but they each picked a passion project and did camp improvement, stuff that we normally didn't get to right away, but they did fundraising for it, and everything from new trash can handles around the camp to camper ships for the next summer for people to be able to attend, to raising money for that, to build adding on down at our ropes course. They did an amazing job, and then to be creative and to look at, okay, this isn't camp what it looks like, but we can still provide this opportunity.
Right, we can still do some things.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, some of those things that you guys did were tremendously helpful for some of us who benefited from it. I mean, so the week-long camp, virtual camp, we did that together.
Yeah.
I remember, like, we were planning a virtual, online camp, and Mark and I having the conversation. I was like, you know what? This would be a million times better if Luther Hill was a part of it. Like, maybe we should see if they want to do it. And I remember calling you and you being like, absolutely, let's figure this out. And I was really proud of what we put together.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. And I got a lot of positive feedback from people. But then a little later in the summer, when you guys sent out the email about the virtual Lyle program, my son was going into his freshman year of high school. So he wasn't technically eligible to be a Lyle 1. And I remember calling you and Jen and saying, he's so lonely and he's so bored. Is there any way he could be a part of this? And you guys were like, absolutely, not even a problem. And it started out one week. I don't know if you remember this or not, but y'all added a second week because you had some other camp going for the middle schoolers the second week, and they got to still connect and do devotions and stuff together. It wasn't as intensive as that first week, but that was like all of his interaction for the whole summer with other people. And it made such a big difference for how lonely he was. And my daughter did the middle school week that you guys did. And I think, because everything was so locked down still at that point in time, I can only speak for myself as a parent, but it really was tremendously helpful and impactful for my kids. And hopefully you heard lots of that as well from other people. Yeah,
we did. And really you highlighted that the partnerships, the creativity, the partnerships, partnering with Living Word for the virtual day camp was a big bonus. We got to work with we don't have the technology and y'all and with Rafi, and so we
didn't want to have to create all the curriculum from scratch, so it worked out great.
It worked out great. It's so and it's been fun from that. Is you think of your ministry in new ways, and there's things in that you probably won't do again, but there's things you're like, oh,
we could do that.
We could do that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's been exciting to see moving forward. Like last summer, when we welcomed folks back, we were at about 60% capacity. We're already tracking now to be closer to 75, 80% capacity. So we're starting to see that move. And then also it allowed us, I think, to tell our story better.
Yeah.
To look at what are the channels, what are the avenues that we could be utilizing that we learned during COVID to improve the camp experience moving on forward. Things that we also learned from that is families at this time, families want to be, and so a lot of our retreating has really moved to focus in on families.
Right.
And we've seen a great response to that. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. So during all of this, what keeps everybody going? You, your staff, what motivates y'all to keep doing what you're doing?
Work with a wonderful staff that are just passionate about outdoor ministry and passionate about Luther Hill. Yeah. And I think passionate about the impact that it has not only in LaGrange and in Galveston, but the impact that it has in the communities that we have the opportunity to partner with, to see folks to value that Luther Hill experience, even in lockdown times and things like that, to give of time, to give of money, to give of just to see that story. I think that's how kind of our staff was just like the pick me up from hearing those stories, and the pick me up that's what kept us going. And then also just a lot of us were campers ourselves.
Right.
And then you learn that what it means. You want to pass that along to somebody else. You want generation. We're a generational ministry. So and we want to keep going. Right now,
my family is a testament to that.
Yeah, our staff currently talks a lot about this is our time to shepherd Luther Hill Ministries. Yeah. We've watched from 1954 where we're at now, and we want to keep that going. We want to keep that this impactful ministry to keep moving and growing. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the ways that you are growing. What's happening? I know what's happening.
Yeah.
I need to know what's happening.
Well,
there's exciting stuff.
Yeah. In the midst of COVID, we had the opportunity to purchase additional land around Luther Hill.
They didn't just purchase additional land; they doubled the size of camp.
Yeah, so we went from 85 acres to right now just over 155 acres. We had that opportunity. It was amazing in the midst of everything. You're figuring out how to continue 3-6 months, but then also our board had the vision to go, what's the next 100 years look like, and we were able to purchase that additional 70 acres there, and then down on Galveston, we're currently adding on some outdoor areas and things, so we continue to improve the camp. Before COVID started, we had launched a capital campaign, the Come to the Table, Gather Together campaign, to build a brand new dining hall, 3 new cabins, and then eventually 3 retreat pods at the camp. So that kicked off. We paused in the midst of that, and then relaunched this January. And we are in the midst right now of fundraising for that. We've raised currently we have 100% board participation, 100% staff participation, and we've gone to some of our key donors, and we're sitting at $1.9 million pledged to that campaign. So with the hope of that breaking ground on 3 new cabins this August.
Oh wow! Okay.
So we're moving along.
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
What number do you need to get to break ground?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then focusing in on the dining hall for next summer. So our fundraising efforts, hopefully you'll be hearing more and more about those. But that's kind of as we. The dining hall, when I talked about it being an old pump station, our dining hall was where they pumped the oil.
Right.
And eventually, like when everybody asked me how old the dining hall was, I'm like, 1954. That's when the camp started. But as we've researched, Phillips bought it from Shell. Shell probably built that building in the late 1920s.
Wow.
So a building that was built to pull oil out of the ground,
but
has been utilized since 1954 with folks like Momo Sitzler and all the wonderful kitchen staff that we've had over the years with the hospitality. We identified the new, and then dining hall will move up to over where our chapel is. We're creating a new kind of center of camp, and the retreat centers will be there. And then it moves all of our living, worship, and eating all on one level. So it adds accessibility.
Fewer steps for old people like me up and down that hill.
And then our old dining hall, the F.E. Eilers Hall, will become an indoor gathering area. Nice. So allows us. So are you
going to keep the kitchen attached to that?
We're going to keep We're going to keep this kitchen to have a small kitchen down there, just in case we have multiple groups on site, and we can continue to host. So the 3 new cabins are actually replacing 3 of our traditional style cabins that we're tearing down for the new dining hall.
Okay, so some more of the old ones are going away.
Yes, no.
And will they look the same as the new ones?
We call them traditional. That's what our fundraising consultants told us. They're not old; they're traditional. So.
I was told when we were doing virtual campus that I should not say, "Oh, you could stream it later. It was on demand."
On demand. There you go.
Yes,
That's what you pay those consultants for.
Language
right?
is everything, people. Language is everything. Yeah, absolutely. So you were talking earlier about stories. Mm-hmm. Can you just share a couple great stories that are just some of your favorites that you love to share with people? Because I think stories really help set the tone and give people, and I just hit my microphone, give people the idea of what things are like and, what sorts of experiences people have. Just pick a couple that are your faves.
Well, one story goes back when I was serving as the program director. And
when I met you over a decade ago.
Yeah. Been out there a while. But we were on Sunday when kids are getting out of the car and there's all that camp energy around. Mm-hmm. Some of those kids are ready for that, and some of the kids are not ready for that. And this one gentleman, I don't know. He gets out of the car and you could tell right away he wasn't having it.
Yep.
And he was like, okay. So Monday morning comes, we get through Sunday. I talk with him a couple times. He's going to be all right. Monday morning comes around, and here comes, we're missing one cabin. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, I'll have to go up. And then all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the cabin where this gentleman is in.
Yeah.
And I get up there and the counselor and his co-counselor are in there and they're I was like, hey, go ahead and take the kids down and me and the co-counselor are in there. And this kid is hugging the bunk bed and he will not get out. And I was like, all right. And so him and I, for the next couple of days, we spend some time together with each other, just trying to get him into camp and all that. But he's constantly, and we don't like to call home at camp a lot of times, but with this young gentleman, it got to the point where we were going to have to call home.
Yep.
And so him and I call the mom before him and I have this conversation.
Okay.
And the mom looks at me and goes, he's not coming home. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so finally that evening, Tuesday evening, I was like, all right, we're going to go call your mom. And he looks at me and he's like, yeah, I broke you down. I'm going home. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And we get in there and he's talking all big. And I get on the phone and then I hand the phone to him and he just goes, oh, Mom, I miss you so much. I miss you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden his face just drops. He slams the phone down and he runs out of the office. And I start running next to him. I was like, what did your mom say? And then he just turns and looks at me and he goes, this camp and God have turned my mother against me. And I was like, I'm just like, and you're trying to, it's that thing when like your child tells you something, but you can't laugh but you don't want to. And I was like, well, let's talk about it. And we finally calmed down. And from that point on, he had the best week of camp.
Right.
He started being in everything. And and he just started to enjoy camp. And then on that Friday when his mom picked him up, she goes, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And he's like, Mom, I want to come back next year. Came back to camp for 5-6 years, came to retreats. And just once he allowed himself to experience camp, and that's what camp, when you start to just experience that community, experience the fun, to just be there and learn more about yourself. And Camp and God did not turn his mother against him, but I think Camp and God allowed him to live more fully into who he is.
Right.
And to experience.
They were vessels of the Holy Spirit for him so that he could then experience God and his mother more fully in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's stories of, I think of some of our summer staff as well, when, to talk to them now, they're working in different fields that some of them are pastors, some of them are youth directors, some of them are in the for-profit world, and to hear from them, they're like, man, I miss camp. And you know what? I use the skills that I learned at camp more than I ever thought I would in there. So it's really fun to watch the stories of camp, these staff members, the young adults, the campers, and even the adults that get to come out for retreats, to hear them at the end of the week and just say, it was so much fun to play.
Yeah.
And to reconnect, to be just in a different pace, to be out in creation, to be amongst a community. I think that's the power of camp.
Yeah.
Power of camp is community, and then getting to disconnect so that you can reconnect.
Yeah. I would say, in my experience, camp also has a healing element to it. I know I've told you this story before. I had one of my former youth back when I was a youth minister from Seguin, and she, as a 6th grader, went to camp with me. I took this whole big group of confirmation campers, and y'all, we were the bad group that year. Like, I had the mean girls who fought all week and were nasty and catty, and sometimes these weeks just happen, and that week, it was my campers, and it was the worst. And she's this little 6th grader who's just sort of coming into all the things, and it was so rough for her. And at the end of that year, it was not good. And I was like, okay, we need to take a pause on the camp that we were going to at the time. It was not Luther Hill, because all that's going to happen is I'm going to take these kids back, and the next summer it's going to be like, that's where we fought about the blow dryer, and that's where we got into the fight about, who was besties with who and whatever. I was like, we need a break. So we went to another camp the next summer, but it got really expensive. And so her 3rd year, and she stuck with me every year, her 3rd year, the kids went to Luther Hill. And I wasn't able to be there that week. I was transitioning to seminary. That was my last year with us in Seguin. And so my intern at the time went with all the confirmation kids. And I was the driver, so I drove out to pick them all up. And as soon as I walked in the building to pick them all up and sign them all out, she burst into tears. And I remember thinking like, oh man, what happened? Poor Cameron. Like, what the heck happened to her, to this week? Like, I didn't get any bad reports or anything. And so I went up and I was hugging her and I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she went, this was the best week of my life. And then like, I don't want to go home. And she just had such a great experience. She didn't want to come home. And that was so healing after some of the other kind of camp traumas that we had. And she ended up coming and working on staff for y'all for one summer. I think the summer before college. And I mean, just loved it. And I was like, oh, thank you, sweet baby Jesus, because I thought this was something totally other. The other thing I think about is the hospitality that camp extends to everyone. When my kids were little, my son was old enough to come to camp, but my daughter wasn't. And I don't know if you remember this or not. My daughter was going into kindergarten. Into kindergarten? No, had just finished kindergarten because first grade is when they can come to camp, right? And I called you and I said, it is going to be World War III if brother gets to go to camp and she doesn't. Is there any way she can stay with me in the sponsor cabin, but like she could just be with the big kids during the day? And you were like, yeah, we can work that out. And then when I got on site, you're like, yeah, we're just going to throw her in with a cabin group and see what happens. And I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, basically, it's not surprising to anyone who knows Izzy, but she was just sort of like, bye, Mom. And like, was like little Miss Camp. And I don't know if you remember this or not. At one point, she was up front helping lead Boom Chicka Boom. And was like dominating the whole thing and telling everybody else what else to do. And you were like, how long till she graduates from high school and I can hire her on staff? And still goes to camp. But that flexibility and that hospitality I've always just experienced. It's like not the same at Luther Hill as other places. It is exceptional at Luther Hill, and I've always been grateful for everything that you guys, how flexible you've been and just how open you are to new ideas and new partnerships and, you know, all the things. I mean, obviously in that situation, it helped that Mom was going to be there all week in case something went down, but yeah.
It's one of our core values,
hospitality. Exactly. Absolutely. And it shows. So as we conclude, what are some things people can do to help you guys? What are ways that we can meet some of your needs?
Pray. Pray for the summer staff that are getting ready to come. Absolutely. Pray for the campers that will be coming this summer. Just pray for them, for their experience. To come to camp. Partner with us. Come to camp. We have groups of all different types. We're not just welcoming church groups.
Right.
We have groups of all type that come out. So if you have like a organization that you're a part of, or come out for a retreat, invite your friends around the neighborhood to come to summer camp. And then always financial support is always, that helps us keep the cost of camp low. And then it supports the ministry to allow money is never an object for us to keep somebody from camp. So we're able to do that. And then if you have any ideas for things, we love to partner, and we love to, hey, if y'all, we have the facilities, we have all of that, and we love new ideas of, hey, let's figure this out together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, y'all heard it. Pray. If you have the means, financial support is great. Send some kids their way, because it is an amazing opportunity, and utilize all the other ways that you guys minister to people. I mean, although summer camp is 8 weeks during the summer, you guys are open year round and have people and host people all the time. Yeah. And so if you have not been to Luther Hill, I highly recommend that you figure out a way to make that work for your life. My family goes still every summer. Opie and I will pick a week and go out to camp, and Opie is Mr. Camp. Like, there's no competing with him at camp. So it is sort of one of those things I can't even, I told Matt this earlier. I missed one summer in seminary because I had to be a chaplain at a hospital, and I missed because of COVID. But other than that, I have been to camp every year since my kids were 3 and 4.
And we even if you don't have kids, we invite you. I would love to give you a tour of the camp during summer. Come just experience that energy, that excitement. We would love to come on out and
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you as always, and great to hear about what's going on. And it's exciting times at Luther Hill. So, hopefully we can continue to partner and continue to come up with creative new things that benefit both of our ministries.
Well, Pastor Ariel, thank you so much for the invitation, and to the members of Living Word. We're just grateful for the partnerships, the support, and the love that y'all have shown us over the years.
It is a mutual admiration society. It is great. Let's go ahead and close with a prayer, and then we will say goodbye to y'all. Do you want to pray? Or do you want me to be the professional prayer?
You have a degree that says you're the professional prayer, so
I hate
yes.
that degree sometimes. All right, let us pray. Good and gracious God, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn about our ministry partner at Living Word, Luther Hill Ministries. The wonderful work that they're doing, the ways that they are helping grow leaders, and they are helping to transform lives and to bring all walks of people closer to you. Please continue to support their ministry. Please continue to infuse creativity and dynamic opportunities and hospitality into their organization. Please help all of us to continue to support them in all of the ways that we are able. Bless their staff, bless their program staff, their summer staff, everyone who is going to be out there this summer. Let them be safe, let them be healthy, let them have a wonderful, wonderful summer where they grow as leaders and disciples. We pray all of these things in your Son's holy name, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for joining us for Faith Talk, Conversations That Matter. This is Matt Kindsvatter, Executive Director of Luther Hill. I was Pastor Ariel Otterstedt. I still am Pastor Ariel Otterstedt. And we are just glad that y'all were with us. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.